Hi, I'm Jo George, Business Manager for Sentricon, Corteva Agriscience. It's a great shame that I can't be with you today in person, but hopefully things will be different this time next year. Today I'm sharing a short presentation on Sentricon. Sentricon, safe, proven, durable, strong. The Sentricon system has a history dating back 30 years. Here in Australia, we launched the Sentricon system in 1997. It was the first monitoring and baiting system to be launched in Australia. In 2004, we launched Sentricon 2, which saw a change in the business model along with a change in the bait metrics. In 2015, we launched Sentricon Always Active, which has been a real game changer. As the name suggests, it is active from installation, can be used as a preventative and curative system, as we have the Sentricon above ground termite baits, which complements the Always Active, as they both have the same active ingredient. It can be used post or pre-construction, as it has the code mark certification. It really is as good as it gets. Over the last 6 years, more recently by pest managers on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, where they had flooding back in March, I've been asked how the Always Active rods hold up in floodwater. So I thought I'd share a couple of studies that have been done. The first study was done in November 2010 in the United States, which was when Dow, now Corteva, launched Always Active. Recruit HD is the name for their Always Active rods, and the only difference is that the active ingredient is novaflumaron, not hexaflumaron like we have in Australia, but the actual composition of the rod matrix is exactly the same. So basically they put their Always Active rod in a Sentricon station, then put it into a jar and covered it with purified water. The flooding experiment was conducted in triplicate, and then the water was analysed by a sensitive analytical technique to determine the amount of novaflumaron on the day of flooding and then every month for up to 3 months. What that study revealed was that if the Sentricon Always Active stations are flooded, there is virtually no potential for the active ingredient to leach outside of the station. The active ingredient concentration in the water around the rods was extremely low, below the acute toxicity level for even the most sensitive aquatic species. And any of the free active ingredient is locked into the soil matrix, even when flooded, and does not move into the surrounding environment. And interestingly enough, the active ingredient concentration in the water didn't increase with the length of time that Sentricon rod was flooded. So in other words, when they tested it at day 1 of flooding, and then 3 months later, there was very little difference. The second study was conducted in 2015 on our hexaflumaron tomaticide rods. So the rods were placed in graduated cylinders and covered with an aqueous calcium chloride, and then kept in a dark ambient temperature. Single samples were taken on day 1 and triplicate samples taken on day 36 and day 92 after flooding. The rods were removed and the flood solution poured into a glass jar. The glass cylinders was then rinsed with methanol and added to the flood solution, and then replicate aliquots of each sample was diluted and analysed by the same method as the previous study to determine the amount of hexaflumaron concentration. And what that study concluded was that, again, no significant difference in results between day 1 and day 92. And most likely any hexaflumaron measured in the floodwater was actually rinsed off the exterior of the rod rather than leached from the rod. Now, the design of this study represented an absolute worst case scenario, as the length of time the rods were flooded was excessive. And this suggests extremely low environmental exposure due to flooding of hexaflumaron. I was talking to our global field scientist a few months ago, and he was telling me that several years ago there were floods in New Orleans in the United States due to a hurricane, and that stagnant water had flooded some Sentricon stations for a number of weeks. He was currently working in the lab at the time and sent some of the nasty baits from the floodwaters and asked to test them to see their palatability. The termites readily accepted the rods in the lab, and also the stations were again hit by termites after the water subsided, demonstrating their palatability in, again, worst case scenarios. Some of the Sentricon stations were actually uplifted and washed away, which now at the time replaced those stations free of charge as an act of goodwill. I thought I'd share with you this slide of 3 photographs. After being asked a question in 2017 as to how rods hold up in floodwater, I decided to do my own experiment at home. Now, that rod was immersed in the jug of water for over a year. The first photograph was on the left, was on day 1. It was put into the jug, and then the second photograph is at 3 months, and the third photograph is after 6 months. As you can see, there is a crack after 3 months, but we know that is totally normal and to be expected. But its condition didn't change by 6 months nor after 12 months. It was still as solid as day 1, which is pretty outstanding durability-wise. So what does this mean for you? Due to the minimal leaching of the active ingredient and no degradation of the rod by excessive water, Sentricon Always Active delivers you peace of mind that even in the worst case scenario, it's environmentally friendly and its durability is undeniably outstanding. If you would like more information, please go to our website. There's lots of online e-learning modules. There's lots of video testimonials, PDFs of all our printed resources for your customers and your staff. There's durable notices available, infographics and other assets for marketing your business. Thank you for your time today, and now I will play a short video which is of one of many interesting Sentricon Always Active sites here in Australia. Thank you.